All right, does anyone have any questions?
Yeah, why are you releasing this today?
The state of Florida is continuing with their prosecution of Byron Harris. As part of the criminal justice process, the defense counsel has a right to all evidence that may be used against the defendant. Our understanding is that the defense counsel has filed for discovery, and we anticipate the video to be provided to the defense counsel today. We have had some experience with some information that has been provided to defense counsel that has made its way to the papers, including Officer Williams' unredacted medical file. So we felt it responsible to let the public know that we were aware of the video, that we're doing our due diligence, that we are looking into this, and we wanted to make sure that it was released with some context, as opposed to being used to try the case in the court of public opinion.
So what's the status of these officers now?
They are still working.
I presume they did use of force reports?
They did use, yeah, absolutely. As I said in my statement,
Yeah.
they did use of force reports. They
were
indicated,
approved, right?
I'm sorry?
They were approved, correct?
The use of force reports themselves as documents were approved. However, at the point in time where we took all of it in and took a look at it and compared it with the video, you guys have seen the video, so you can recognize that there is some challenge to identifying what person came from what car, what person was in what location. So we don't have the ability to be able to, for instance, mark the personnel on the scene and identify them throughout the entire incident, because the depiction of it is somewhat choppy. So that's why we asked for external oversight. What we would ordinarily do is we would take a look at the use of force reports and then marry up the use of force reports to what we were actually seeing from a video evidence standpoint. But because we weren't able to do that, that's why we required an outside investigation.
So these officers have not been disciplined then?
Who would you discipline? Because we have heat signatures.
Sure.
Anybody else?
Well, yeah, what's the reason for the initial pursuit? Describe that for me.
I understand that our officers attempted to conduct a traffic stop. I don't have all of the details of that, and that will certainly be part of the administrative investigation following the inquiry that's being done right now.
That wasn't included in any of the reports? I think I remember some about failing to stop for a red light.
Yeah, it was a traffic stop.
Okay.
There were some other circumstances as well. I believe that there was an indication in the report that officers observed the subjects inside the vehicle tossing a white powder outside of the vehicle as it was fleeing and that type of thing. The details of that, we aren't able to interview our personnel on that without giving them immunity. So we have to proceed with the evaluation of the use of force first, and then we will do the administrative review, which will give us a lot of answers to those questions.
Okay.
Can you, for I guess the regular citizen who will see this video, can you walk us through what exactly are we seeing when we see that video?
I wish I could. If I was able to really discern everything that was happening in that video, if I had the ability to do forensic video enhancement and ascribe specific behaviors to specific individuals, I wouldn't have asked for the outside review. I can tell you that we had a carload of individuals who believed they were just involved in the killing of a police officer. I can tell you that we had a bunch of police officers who would believe that one of their co-workers had just been run over and had been killed. I'm sure that that everyone on scene was scared. Again, as I said in my statement, I don't think there's any part of this incident before or during it that would lead a reasonable person to believe that Byron Harris was willing to comply with our officers' efforts to take him into custody. And there's one simple way to avoid any use of force: compliance. You're asked to do something by a police officer, and you simply do it. And that clearly didn't happen in this case, by virtue of the fact that one of our officers was run over and nearly killed, and by virtue of the fact that an extensive high-speed pursuit occurred while we were trying to apprehend Mr. Harris.
So whatever you can make out of what this video shows to you, they followed procedure and everything was...
I can't tell. I mean, I can see that they used force. But again, they reported the use of force prior to knowing about this video. So I don't, it's not like they exercised force and then didn't say anything. They exercised force and they documented it. And I think it's important to be clear that, law enforcement officers are justified and lawfully able to use force as appropriate. So, you know, we deal with violent individuals, and sometimes you have to use force to control that violence. You know, whether or not this was justified or not is something that we're going to leave up to the investigation that's ongoing.
Those are criminal investigations, correct?
They absolutely are criminal investigations, because criminal statute is what actually gives us the authority to use force in a lawful way. It's an exception to the battery statute and whatnot, in some cases in the homicide statute. Obviously in this case that doesn't apply, but these are exceptions to criminal statutes. So if we're open to the possibility that the use of force was justified, we have to be equally open to the possibility that it was not. And if it was not, that would be in the criminal realm. So it would be no different than any other criminal investigation that we would conduct. You know, there's a possibility that criminal wrongdoing may be found, and there's a possibility criminal wrongdoing may not be found. But I think what's important is that we have some of the very best folks in the country working on this investigation. We're really, really impressed with the assistance that we've received from both the state attorney's office and from the FBI. You know, we believe that we're going to find out exactly what transpired, and that's our goal, is to find out exactly what transpired. This is not an easy thing to watch, and it is not an easy thing for our department. And I'm sure that after this, it will not be an easy thing for the public. The only thing I can do is assure you that we are not hiding behind this. We are not running from it. We are confronting it head on. We're dealing with it. We're looking at it, and we're committed to finding out what happened.
So releasing this is full disclosure because it's going to be in discovery and will be open.
Absolutely. Look, my intention and my desire would have been to release this video along with the results of the investigation, and that's what I hoped to be able to do. Obviously, based on the time process and the criminal justice discovery process, we didn't have that luxury. I would much rather not put a question out to the public without an answer. Obviously, that would be the most responsible thing to do. But I also recognize that based on our previous experience, that this is going to get leaked, and this is going to come out, and then we're going to have to try to play catch up in explaining what we did. So I think it's important that we put it out now and we share with you, this is what we've done so far, and this is a process that's been going on for months. And we hope to get a resolution relatively soon.
Chief, at one point that video was zoomed in when they first brought him out of the car and stuff. Then they zoomed out wide. You couldn't really tell. You could just see some sort of force being used. Is that standard protocol to pull out like that? Why wasn't the photog like remain zoomed in so there would be no question? You
know, that's one of the challenges that we have in discerning exactly what transpired. I'm not a helicopter pilot, and I am not a camera operator. So, I mean, actually you guys would probably have a better idea as to what's normal under those circumstances. I don't want to speculate. I think that would be inappropriate for me to do. But it certainly is a challenge in trying to identify exactly what transpired from beginning to end, because it's broken up by some zooming and some panning, some tilting, some trees. I mean, there are times where our view is obstructed by the fact that the perspective is coming from the air. So that's certainly a challenge, but one that we hope that we'll be able to overcome.
In your opinion, though, was the use of force justified in this particular case?
I have no reason to believe that it was not justified, simply because of the fact that I know that there was an extreme level of resistance there, and the use of force is intended to overcome the resistance. I'm open to the possibility that it may not be, but and I think any time that an investigation is done, you have to remain open to all possibilities. Otherwise, you bias yourself, and then you're not able to fairly look at a situation. But as far as I'm concerned, this guy tried to kill one of our officers, believed he killed one of our officers, ran from our officers, endangered the public, and our officers exercised their duty to take him into custody in whatever way they needed to. I think it's important to note that, at least from my understanding, Mr. Harris nor the other occupants of the vehicle experienced any significant injury. I mean, they had some tissue injury, I understand, maybe some shiners and some cuts and things of that nature, but I don't believe they experienced any broken bones, certainly no broken back, no separated shoulders, nothing of that nature. So that would be indicative of an excessive use of force, something that would be more punitive as opposed to justified. So based on that information, I'm also inclined to believe that the use of force was appropriate. But again, we have to be open to all possibilities, and really that's not up to me. That's one of the advantages of giving it to an outside organization that has no bias whatsoever.
If, go ahead.
Well, I was going to ask, if they were resisting arrest, if Harris was resisting arrest, why isn't he being charged with that?
I can't speak to the charges.
You talked to the state attorney's office, I'm sure.
Right, well, the decision to charge for specific counts and for specific charges is the state attorney's decision. So they would have to speak to why they're charging what they're charging.
Are you upset that they're not charging him with resisting?
I don't have the luxury of having a sense of personal feelings when it results to what people are charged with. We do a job, we do a tough job, and we have to allow the system to work. If you become personally invested, then it creates problems. So, no, I'm not.
Okay. What about, you're talking a lot about Harris, but the other two passengers in the car, presumably innocent. I mean, I believe the charges were dropped against them. They pleaded out or to something lower. But the use of force was used against them too. Tasers for the other two passengers, kicks to the head, punches. I mean,
I'm not shaking my head in agreement because maybe you know more about this incident than I do.
That's in the reports.
But I would say to you that we are not clear on this video in terms of what level of resistance the officers faced. Nor are we clear, and nor will we be clear until the investigation is concluded, what the officers perceive to be objectively reasonable. That is the standard for use of force. The case law is called Graham v. Connor. All right, and it basically says that an officer can use force they believe to be objectively reasonable based on the totality of the circumstances they're facing. Our officers are not droids, they're not superhuman, they are human beings. They are fearful, they are amped up, they are concerned for their own safety. They're approaching a car that they believe is occupied by people that just killed one of our officers. And that's important to keep in mind in their perception of the threat that they're facing when they approach the vehicle. And as people are being removed from the vehicle based on whatever level of resistance they're facing, they're going to filter everything through that lens of perception that, hey, these guys were just involved in the killing of one of our officers. So I think that that's an important thing to remember. We like to think that officers in droid-like fashion will go up to a vehicle and, like RoboCop, take someone into custody, completely dispassionate, and not have any personal concerns for their own safety and well-being. But that's just not the way it works. So, yes, sir, you had a question?
Yeah, if the defense counsel wasn't requesting this video, would your department release it?
No, not until the conclusion of the investigation. At the conclusion of the investigation, absolutely. But because we have an active investigation, because we've now gone public with this video, it is not going to help the investigation. And my desire, my goal, is to get to the bottom of exactly what happened. But now there's going to be public influence, and there are going to be people that are going to be pushing for specific outcomes that aren't going to have the details of this investigation, and perhaps the details of the investigation that we would have received had we not gone public. But we do recognize that the video was coming out, and we felt it responsible to do so with some assurance of context to our public.
Well, discovery documents become public record inherently when they become discovery.
Yeah, that's absolutely true.
I want to ask you about, when did you first see this video, or hear of this video?
I first heard of the video a day or two after the incident. I was actually away in training, and I received a call from a colonel from the sheriff's department who told me, you might want to take a look at the video. And I reached out to the acting chief in my absence and asked the acting chief to get a copy of the video. They secured it. It took us, I'd say, 10 or 12 working days to collect all of the reports, to sit down and look at the video, and to make an assessment as to whether or not we were able to validate what happened or whether or not we needed outside assistance.
And 10 to 12 days later, that's when you decided to go to the state attorney's office?
We contacted the state attorney's office and the Federal Bureau of Investigation within hours of one another.
Is this the first time you've ever asked for the FBI's assistance in a case against one of your officers?
It is the first time I've ever requested the FBI, bearing in mind I've only been the chief for about 1.5 years. But yes, it is.
Any other statements for the public about this?
No, but I appreciate you coming today. Thank you very
Thanks.
much.